Sony PlayStation 5. We know the base clock, we know the boost clock, we know the cuticores, we know the teraflops, we know the poon pops, we know the Dualsense controller. We know all the tech specs, boys. I covered those months before the console even dropped. But today I'm going to unclasp my bra and give you guys a close look at what the PS5 is really like to own 3 months later. From a one-on-one, intimate, passionate relationship between owner and console, what does she smell like on a Saturday night? Let's get it. Alrighty boys, well I did my 3-month owner's review of the Series S, now it's time for the PlayStation 5. I'm going to try and steer clear of a lot of technical mumbo-jumbo and engineering jargon and just get down to the human experience of owning a PlayStation 5 for the last 3 months. Alrighty guys, so starting out with the experience of getting a PlayStation 5, just actually getting a PS5, obtaining a PS5, locking one in as the kids say, copying one if you will, is very, very difficult. So when you do actually get one and you go through the unboxing process, it is incredibly rewarding. Even if it was the shittiest console in the world, which luckily it's not, but even if it was, it's like a great white unicorn. When you can grab that sucker by the horn, you know, like you're churning butter, like you're Amish, it's a very good feeling. You know, just the fact that this bad boy is sitting here staring me in the brown eye is just absolutely insane. So let's go ahead and peel this bad girl like a banana real quick and see if we can make a split. Oh, you're a big girl, and I like that. Oh my goodness. Call me a bicycle tire because I am pumped right now. Luckily, it is a very, very good console though, and I have yet to be disappointed. Now, there are some areas of improvement that Sony needs to work on. There are some areas that are lacking, and in fact, for those, I will direct you to a video that is linked in the description below that I uploaded just yesterday called Legitimate Problems with the PS5, where I go over 5 or 6 pretty major issues with the PlayStation 5. I'm not really going to touch on those too much here because, again, I've made an entire video about them. Just jumping right into it, we already got the experience out of the way, the unboxing. The unboxing's very stimulating in the gamer nether regions and whatnot, just because we have not had a new generation console in about 7.5 years. And for somebody like myself that started their console gaming journey on a PlayStation original back in 1995, this is a huge deal. So first of all, the user interface and controller kind of come in combination to make a brand new next-gen experience. You don't really get that on the Xbox Series. The user interface or operating system is virtually identical to the Xbox One, which can be seen as a good thing because there's literally no learning curve. It's like you're playing on your old console. But me personally, I didn't want that, and I feel like a lot of people don't. We haven't had a new gen console in 7.5 years, so it is nice to see a brand new user interface, a brand new operating system. Now, I did make a video, again, will be linked in the description below, with some of the features, cool tips and tricks that you can do with the PlayStation 5. For example, instead of having to go onto YouTube and look up a walkthrough or tutorial, if you're stuck in a game, you can literally press the PlayStation home button and get pop-up hints or tips about your game. Also, instead of having to load into a game's main menu and then load into a specific part of the game world, a lot of supported games allow you to just jump into a certain spot of the map from the home menu, which is pretty crazy. All in all, I have to say I really do like the operating system. However, what I will caveat by saying that is I don't do a whole lot of media on the PlayStation 5. I have a smart TV, so obviously my applications like Disney+, HBO Max, Netflix, those are all handled just on my smart TV. To save space on the hard drive, obviously, which we will touch on in a little bit, is a little small and not expandable right now. So I don't really do a whole lot of media on here. However, I do have HBO Max on here as my TV does not have an application or a tile for that. And I will say, it does not work. It does not really work well. It is not in a good place. I have to switch over to the media tab, then select that. Half the time the application doesn't even work. If I run HBO Max on my Series S, it just works every time. I have no issues with buffering or anything like that, so that is a little bit frustrating. So if you are somebody that has a lot of media applications on your PlayStation 5, that's something to keep in mind. A lot of these apps didn't really run very well. I did test Netflix and YouTube on there, and they just seemed a little janky. Maybe that's just my personal experience, but again, for me, it's a non-issue because I do all of that streaming platforms on my television anyway. So cosmetically, I think the PlayStation looks really good. This is completely subjective. Everyone sees beauty differently, but I think it looks really good. Not a huge fan of the colorway of white on the outside, black on the inside. However, you can get vinyl wraps or sticker decals, skins, if you will. There's also companies like D-Brands out there that sell painted plates that you can snap on, and the plates do pop off very easily and you're able to change them on the fly. Also, the controller is an absolute technological marvel. I don't use that term lightly. The haptic feedback and vibration motors, not to mention the built-in microphone, are really cool welcome features, not to mention ergonomically. This is almost as comfortable as an Xbox One controller, which in my opinion is the perfect feeling controller for most North American hands. This feels fantastic, and it is a close second. I do say second because it's still not as comfortable as a Xbox controller, but ergonomically feels very good. And the haptic feedback I thought was kind of a gimmick until I actually tried it. It is really impressive, and it does integrate with some of the new games like Returnal and Astro's Playroom, to where you're stepping on different surfaces and you'll feel the crunch of sand in your hands and stuff like that. And the adaptive triggers, again, like I mentioned, Returnal, you hold down the trigger to where you feel a crisp wall. That's one fire mode, and then you pull down all the way where you have to snap it all the way down. It's another firing mode. And also in certain games like Call of Duty, different guns will have different breaking points and reset points for the trigger. It's just really cool. And having a built-in mic is cool if you want to navigate the user interface to search Netflix or YouTube videos, and you want to communicate with your buddies via voice chat and your mic goes down, your headset dies, you still have that, which is really cool. So overall, a very good controller. I will say the Sony face buttons that are all over the back of it, the cross, triangle, square, circle, there's face buttons on the back, which is a cool little Easter egg, but they don't really add that much textured grip. You actually get a lot more grip out of a Xbox Series controller. So next up, it is relatively quiet 90% of the time. Every once in a while during an update or during startup or shutdown, it does spool up the fan and it gets rather loud in my entertainment center. Not a huge deal, just something to note. It's not as loud as a PS4 or an Xbox One, but it is the loudest of the new generation consoles by a substantial margin. The Series S and Series X, which I do have lots of hands-on experience with, are substantially quieter. As for heat, I haven't noticed any major heat kicking out of the back or sides out of the exhaust port, so that is good. Now, as for storage, you have that interesting 825 gigabyte SSD, which is incredibly fast. That is the only component that's more powerful than a Series X. It has faster read and write speeds. However, it is a weird 825 gigabyte size, only 667 gigabytes of which are usable storage space, which isn't a lot. In an era where games are well over 100 gigs, especially multiplayer games with DLC and map packs and whatnot, it's not a lot. And there's a slot in the back for expandable storage for a SSD expansion slot that's been firmware blocked for the last 6 months since the console was released. So Sony, let's go ahead and get it together, guys. Now, as far as sheer graphical performance, we're talking frames per second and also resolution, HDR, ray tracing, stuff like that. This is an incredibly powerful console. And the thing is, it is so well software optimized and also so over-engineered when it comes to the architecture, how all the parts and components communicate inside of the APU. You have a CPU, a GPU, and your RAM and your storage, which all kind of are combined into one unit called an APU. And it works so well, it's so well integrated on the PS5 that even though the components are about 15 to 20% weaker than the Series X, in 90% of titles, it runs just as good, if not slightly better. It's not just me saying that. There have been tons of tests from Tech Radar, Linus Tech Tips, a bunch of major YouTube channels, as well as journalistic gaming platforms doing tests side by side, frame for frame with the Series X, and the PlayStation holds its own phenomenally. And I have to say, it does look incredibly gorgeous. I have this LG 75-inch TV behind me, and it looks very good. When I'm playing these games in HDR, especially new games like Astro's Playroom, Miles Morales, and Returnal, they look amazing. They look amazing, simply stunning, and it really does give you a next generation experience. But for me personally, the two factors that are more important than just sheer beautiful graphics, to me, makes a more next gen experience would be the lack of load times. It loads incredibly quick from a cold start all the way into in-game, very quick. I will say the Series S and X does switch between two open games quicker because it has a feature called Quick Resume. PlayStation 5 has a feature called Switcher, but it is not the same. It does not work like that. It actually starts a game from the main menu. As we're on the Xbox, it takes you right to where you pause the game at, and that's really cool. So other than switching games, other than switching 2 to 3 open applications quicker, like on the Xbox, as far as just navigating the menu and launching games from a cold start, the PlayStation 5 is incredibly fast. So for me, that is a bigger next generational leap, is the lack of load times. In game, there is like virtually no load times. You might catch a 1 to 2 second load screen, but it's nothing like we had in the last generation where you're sitting for a minute and a half waiting for Red Dead 2 to load. And the next one would be the higher frame rate. For me, the jump from 60 to 120 frames, or 30 to 60, 60 to 120, basically the new generation refresh rate. The new generation refresh rate, as long as you have 120 hertz TV with a high-speed HDMI 2.1 cable, you are going to be seeing that 120 hertz, which makes a huge difference in things like racing games and first-person shooters, where there's a lot of fast motion on screen, and that'll actually help you win races and get kills, like legitimately. It looks amazing, it's incredibly fluid, and to me, I would prioritize a high frame rate over sheer beautiful graphics any day of the week. I have been doing it on PC for over a decade now. I like good graphics, but obviously I'll take a slight hit to shaders and textures for a higher frame rate, especially if I'm playing a competitive game. Next up is I did get the disc version of the PlayStation 5. It does have an Ultra Blu-ray player, which is lauded as being the best Blu-ray player on the market currently. It was the same thing with the PlayStation 3 and 4. It seems like Sony's home consoles generally have like the best Blu-ray players on the market. This is Ultra HD Blu-ray that does native 4K with HDR support, and it looks phenomenal. Next up, for accessories, if you need additional controllers, there's the Dualsense 5 controller, which was only in white. Now there are two new colorways out. There is a Cosmic Red and a Shadow Black. Pictures on screen here. Those will be linked in the description below. They are sold out currently, but will be in stock shortly. And then also, if you do have a PS5, I strongly recommend you getting the Pulse 3D headset. It is absolutely awesome, but it only really stands out when you're playing PlayStation 5 exclusives. If you're just playing a PS4 game on the PS5, or you're using them on your PC or something, they just sound like a $100 pair of stereo headphones. But they take advantage of the Tempest audio engine on board the PS5, which is phenomenal. And when you use it with the Pulse 3D headset, playing games like Returnal, Astro's Playroom, Miles Morales, Demon Souls, any of the new games, it sounds good. It's literally like having Megan Fox and Jennifer Aniston twiddle their tongues in your ears. It's great. Now, as for the games, the experiences, the exclusives that I personally have played on here, while I had never played Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, I know a cardinal sin, but I'm kind of glad I didn't. I played that game start to finish. That is a remastered version with a 60 frame rate, a capped 60 frame rate, and HDR. Beautiful game. Then I rolled right into Miles Morales, played that start to finish. Actually, the first thing I did was play Astro's Playroom, which is baked on board the PS5. It's pre-installed for a reason. It showcases the features of the Dualsense 5 controller, and it is a cute, charming game, but it also is a huge ode or throwback to classic legacy PlayStation. It has a bunch of collectibles that you're getting, like the original PlayStation, the PSP, the PSI, the PSVR, and it's all... Everywhere you look in the game world, there's some little Sony Easter egg. It's just really cool. I've also been playing the hell out of Returnal. It is an incredibly frustrating game as it is a roguelike, and it does not save your progress. If you die, you start back at the start point, but it is a really good game. There will be a comprehensive review of that game on this channel in the near future. I've also played Last of Us 2 start to finish with my girlfriend, and that was a really good game. We would take turns passing the controller back and forth. Awesome game, and we are now playing Ghost of Tsushima, as that has also gotten some graphical buffs as well. I also did get Sackboy's Adventure. That is a very fun game if you want to play some 2 or 4 player couch co-op with your buddies, and if they have a PS4, you can still play with them multiplayer, which is pretty cool. And then I have dabbled with Uncharted, Ratchet and Clank, and a handful of other PS4 remastered games just to see what they ran like, and everything ran pretty smooth. However, I will say this is not the console for you if you're into backward compatibility, as it only does certain PS4 games, and a lot of the PS4 games, about 3 dozen of them or more, run worse than they did on the PlayStation 4. However, all the ones that I care about and have popped into the disc slit? Yeah, inside of her slit. The disc slot. All ran phenomenally for me personally. And wrapping this up, I think the sheer value of this console, you cannot build a gaming PC in the $500 region that will run like a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, and you cannot build a $300 PC that'll perform like an Xbox Series S. Now, granted, the performance ceiling is a lot higher on PC, and granted, even last generation's 2080 Ti is graphically more powerful than these consoles, so obviously something like the 3080 I have in there is a real beast, but I still play a ton of these consoles, especially the PS5, because of the exclusives on there, the new controller, the new user interface, and basically everything coming together as a brand new next generation experience. So my final verdict, I am extremely satisfied with the PlayStation 5 as a whole. There are some issues. Again, watch that video in the description below if you want to see some of my personal nitpicky issues. They're not really nitpicky, they're like legitimate problems that Sony needs to fix. But other than those issues, this is an awesome console. I really do enjoy playing it, and I think Sony did a great job engineering a next-generation console, hardware and software-wise, and I am super satisfied with it. She does me right, boys. She does me right every night. If you enjoyed the video, shoving a thumb, not where you're thinking, boys, watch it. But liking the video helps to get seen by more people, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do sincerely appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this by making the red subscribe button gray, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.